I'd like to welcome everybody to the general meeting of the Louisville Genealogical Society. I'm John Rattel, I'm the president of the society. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have minutes from the last board meeting and the general meeting, and those are posted on the website. We reviewed them and approved them at the board meeting, which we just concluded. Same thing with the treasurer's report. We reviewed it and the board approved that. And those are available if anybody in the general meeting wants to see it. As far as anybody, any announcements and things, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy Roberson and ask her to continue with some announcements. Really looking forward to this presentation. I have Pennsylvania roots myself from Bucks County and the Pennsylvania Dutch, so I'm really looking forward to listening to this. So I will turn it over to Nancy Roberson. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I just want to welcome everybody today to our September workshop. We're excited to have so many of you join us for an exciting presentation. And we regret right away, I want to speak up front to those who might have joined us from Conference Keeper. We regret our speaker, Candy Atkinson, was unable to present Kentucky land records today. She will be rescheduled for a workshop in 2022. So you want to check our website eventually here towards the end of the year and see when Candy is going to be doing Kentucky land records for us. But at this moment, I want to thank Cindy Cruz, who willingly accepted this date to present her presentation on Pennsylvania land records. And before I introduce Cindy, I do want to do a few announcements. And so let me share my screen here just to go to our website. Does everybody see our LGS home screen? We just want to push, we're almost to the last lap here. Saturday, October 16th, we do our annual fall history seminar. And we are thrilled this year to have with us nationally known speaker David Allen Lambert from American Ancestors on the New England Society of Genealogy and History Research. He will be speaking, and you can go right to our homepage here, which is kylgs.org. And you can see the topics he's going to be presenting. A couple of the topics are researching New England ancestors online and in repositories, researching your colonial war ancestors. He's going to also look at what it's like to research our World War I, and he's going to use Kentucky resources for that one. But his fourth one, I think, is going to be fabulous. It's what time is it on your genealogical clock? And if there's one question a lot of people ask me, it's what am I going to do with my research when I am no longer here? And he's going to address this. So we have some great topics here. Please visit our website and register here. We only have about 2.5 weeks till David's going to join us for a great Saturday of genealogical topics. So that's on our homepage. If you look over here on the far right side, here's today's topic. Oh, no, can't even see today's topic. There it is today, Pennsylvania land records. But next month, October 26th, we have Melissa Barker joining us. She is the certified archivist, manager, and public historian for the Houston County, Tennessee Archives. And she's going to be presenting the do's and don'ts of using and researching in libraries and archives. And then our program on November 9th is going to be Maggie Mendersky, and she's going to be presenting Newcomers' Perspective of Louisville. And then our last program of the, our last program of the year is December 14th. We usually are attending together as a membership at a country club where we have a holiday luncheon together and then a speaker. But due to COVID, we're going to do our second year of our holiday get together online with Zoom. And we have Mike Sullivan, who's going to share incredible Kentuckian. So we look forward to you joining us for that program too. So please go to our website, Again, it's www.kylgs.org. I know you would enjoy this Saturday, October 16th with David Lambert. So we look forward to all of that. So before I introduce Cindy, just a few housekeeping. If you would please mute, although I think our Zoom manager mutes everybody's microphones, but keep your microphones muted and also your videos off. That kind of helps with as many that are going to be joining us today. We will take questions. If you would ask your questions on the chat, put a Q if it's a question that signals to us it's not you're chatting with somebody else, but it's actually a question that you would like us to ask Cindy at the end of her presentation. And that's when we will do the Q&A. The handout, Cindy has 2 parts to her handout. I think the first part is 7 pages long and it is on our website. So we're forcing you to go to that website, the handout's there. And then she just sent an additional 8th page. So there's 2 parts to the handout. Go to our webpage to her presentation and you can find that handout today. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about Cindy. Cindy McClanahan Cruz became immersed in research and writing about her ancestors in 2013 after retiring from a 38-year career as a public school music teacher. And kudos for her for that. She enjoys volunteering in the Topeka, Kansas Genealogical Society Library and serves as its society's education committee chair. Many of her ancestors were European immigrants to the province of Pennsylvania in the late 1600s and 1700s. Quaker and Colonial records and Civil War pension applications are her favorite resources, and her goal is to leave a legacy of written biographies of her family members and ancestors to her grandchildren and future descendants. So Cindy is here from Kansas today. We welcome you, Cindy, and I'm so thrilled that you volunteered to help us out today. And we are all looking forward to your talk on Pennsylvania land records.
All right, I will try to share my screen. Good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. First of all, I'd like to say that this is not a presentation on how Pennsylvania acquired various tracts of land. Rather, it's a tutorial on how to find your ancestors' documents that show ownership of land or the process of buying land in Pennsylvania during the colonial period and thereafter. Also, I'm a pretty new researcher, as you may know, and I'm self-taught. So if anyone has any corrections or additions to my information, I would be happy to know because I'm learning. That's why there was another page in the handout. I found some more stuff yesterday. Our goals today are to find the first purchasers' names of land in the colonial Pennsylvania and in the later years. What were the requirements to obtain a patent? What documents were created during the process of obtaining a land patent? Where are they located? And where are later land deeds between private citizens located? So I hope to lead you through the process to find those today. I need to figure out how to get rid of something over here. I don't know how to get rid of the, let's see, there we go. Got things that are in my way, so I'm trying to get rid of them. First of all, the land transactions we'll be talking about first are the land transactions between the Penn family and the post-Revolutionary War Commonwealth. And most of these are held at the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, which we're using the part called the Pennsylvania Archives. Most of these are available at no cost online at the Archives website, at Family Search, and at ancestry.com. And you can get ancestry.com at no cost at your local library. And right now, a lot of people can get it at home through their local library with a library card because Ancestry is offering it free through December 31st, 2021. And by the way, that's the World Edition, so it's even better than what I am subscribing to. Land deeds between private citizens during or after the patent process are held at the Recorder of Deeds office for each Pennsylvania county. And some of these are available at Family Search. So these are the things that we will be looking at today. The patent process in Pennsylvania, because it was a state land state, not a federal land state, is unique among all the other states in the United States. All of the 13 colonies were state land states and a few other states as well. And they all have a little bit different quirks in the way they granted an official first patent or title to the land. In Pennsylvania, there are 5 steps. The applicant made an application for, which is a request for a certain amount of land in a particular place. And they generally estimated the acreage and often would mention the names of folks that the land was next to, or if it was next to vacant land, because the populations were small and people knew everyone that was in their neighborhood. Then a warrant was issued after the application. It was an official certificate authorizing the survey of a tract of land, usually restating the location and acreage of the land. And again, often it could mention rivers or neighbors or vacant lands, which is helpful. Then the warrant issued a request for the drawing of a tract of land that was made after measuring and marking the boundaries and acreage, and this was called the survey. The survey was made by a surveyor with a compass and a chain that measured the different distances of the boundaries of the land. They often followed natural water and other boundaries or naturally occurring things like trees and piles of stones. And sometimes they made a post or some other man-made item, and roads also on the surveys. The return was an internal document sent from the Surveyor General to the Secretary of the Land Office. So we don't find those as part of the record set available for your ancestors. And the final step was obtaining the patent. It was an official written first title granting ownership of property to the first purchaser. So we're going to look at these various 5 records, and we're going to look for indexes that tell us how to find some more information about each of them as we go along. In order to do this, to make it a little more hands-on and a little more concrete to you, I'm using a case study of Nancy's ancestor, Nicholas Dick. I asked her for a name of someone that I could look up and use that as an example. So that's what we started with. And I am using Nicholas to illustrate a reasonably exhaustive land record search. And believe me, they generate a lot of documents in these patent process. Using the following information, we'll search for all of the documents associated with Nicholas's purchase in 1751. The information that Nancy gave me was his name was Nicholas Dick, sometimes written as Deck. The county he was in was Lancaster, and the date was 1751 of the record that we're looking for. So the first thing that we have is the application. This is the part that I didn't even figure out was online until yesterday. So most applications are available at Family Search, which is free. I also have found indexes for certain years on the Pennsylvania Archives, and some pop up on Ancestry as well. So we'll look at these. To find an application for a warrant on Family Search, and here it's helpful, you almost have to know the county and date. We'll talk about not knowing that in a few minutes. But you would sign in to Family Search. Creating an account is free. Then you click on the homepage search tab, go down to catalog, click on it, then click on author, which will give you a box to search. And in that you would type Pennsylvania Land Office, click on that. When you get your Pennsylvania Land Office return, scroll down to applications for warrants, 1734 to 1865. There were applications before 1734, but they were with William Penn, not his heirs, and with the Commonwealth, and those were verbal agreements. So there are no written records before 1734 that I am aware. When you get to the page, you may have to go more than one page to find the year that you need, because there are 2 pages of this, I guess. It says that the records are arranged chronologically, and there are other information up here that you should look at in case that applies to the person you're looking for. But we know Nicholas is in 1751, so I would go with the chronological records. The applications for warrants for 1751. I click on the camera icon to give me the film strip. And I see that this particular film strip has 560 images, but I know that Nicholas's warrant was dated in 7th November. So I'm going pretty close to the end of the film strip to find Nicholas's record. And on this same page, there are 3 other applications. So be careful that you look at the entire page if you don't find your person real easily at first. And this happens to say, 7th November, 1751, Nicholas Dick, 50 acres, more or less, adjoining Frederick Arnold in Topeka Township, Lancaster County. This was requested by Robert Sievers to Nicholas Skull, the Surveyor General, and he was to pay 50, probably shillings, but I'm not sure what that says. I haven't tried to figure that out. And just to show you some other examples of warrants that you might find, on Ancestry, I happened to find my 4th great grandfather, William McWilliams' York County application in 1768 under the Pennsylvania U.S. warrants and applications, which again, we will look at that later. But this one offers some interesting information. It says February 26, 1768, William McWilliams by John Dixon applies for 200 acres of vacant woodland adjoining John Dixon and John McMullen and Nathaniel Morgan in Chanceford Township, York County. This land is said to have been purchased by McWilliams of one Wilson, and the deputy surveyor is to inquire what claim Wilson had to the land and to see if any improvements, and to report on the draft what information he can gain. John Dixon. So we find out some interesting things in that particular application even. And in the archives, there are also indexes for these applications. Some of them perhaps would have been done when there were land lotteries. Part of the acquisition process involved lotteries for the new purchase on the east side of the Susquehanna. So various different times you have different documents, but this is west side applications in York County for the same warrant or the same application we just read. The warrants then are assigned or given to the person after they apply. The successful search, so says the archives, is to have the full name of the purchaser, the county in which the land was located at the time the document was created, and the approximate date of the transaction. And if you need to find what county your person might have been in at a certain time period, you might have to look at the genealogical map of the counties, which is in the Pennsylvania archives. All these things are on your handout. And there also is a list of the county formation at the same location. There are 2 places that we can find Nicholas's warrant from 1751 in Lancaster County. One is Ancestry and the other is Family Search. On Ancestry, that would be my preferred option because the names are searchable, or that warrants are searchable by name. And again, we can get free access to that at home. You would go to ancestry.com homepage, click on the search tab. Again, go to the card catalog, which will restrict our records to the ones that we're interested in. Put in Pennsylvania U.S. land warrants and applications, or anything that will bring up this return, and click on that after you've searched. And then we'll give us a search box where we can search by name for anyone who is listed in the land warrant applications and warrants. So I just put Nicholas Dick in, even though I know it was 1751 and Lancaster County. And I did that because I might get more returns. And if the name is not too common, I won't get an overwhelming number of returns. And I might find some things out that I didn't know. If your person has a common name, you may want to restrict that because it could be a mixed blessing. All right, so yes, we found in the return that we do have Nicholas Dick's warrant in Topeka, Lancaster County, 7th November 1751. So we will look for that record now. I would click on that, or if you hover over it, you can click right on that green view image, or if you click on the image, then you will get the same thing here to click on to see the warrant. And here we have the first page of the warrant. There are two images, the front and back of the document. You can download and print those from the toolbar over here. And we see this is Lancaster County, 1751. You can click on these and get different years if you want to browse, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we see that Nicholas was asking for 50 acres on November 7th, 1751. The number of the warrant is 196, but this was not returned until 1796. So here we get a hint that Nicholas may have not gotten a patent on this land. He may have owned it and then passed it on to someone else, and that person would be or another one even down the line, could be the person who received the first deed or patent to the land. But Nicholas did have dibs on it at this time. So let's see what it says. Here we see the image, and it's too difficult to read. So I usually transcribe these. Often they're written in handwriting and there is no printing. So it's good to transcribe them to see what they say. It says, by the proprietaries, whereas Nicholas Dick of the county of Lancaster hath requested that we would grant him to take up 50 acres of land adjoining Frederick Arnold and Topeka Township in the said county of Lancaster, for which he agrees to pay to our use at the rate of 15 pounds, 10 shillings current money of this province for 100 acres, and the yearly quit rent of 1/2 penny sterling for every acre. Therefore, these are to authorize and require you to survey or cause to be surveyed to the said Nicholas Dick at the place aforesaid, according to the method of townships appointed, the said quantity of 50 acres, if not already surveyed or appropriated, and make return thereof to the secretary's office in order for further confirmation, for which this shall be your sufficient warrant. And it goes on to say that Nicholas has to fulfill the agreement of returning this within 6 months, or this warrant will be void. And that does happen sometimes, and you'll see in the process of looking at some of the deeds that you run upon that there will be people who had a warrant, but it was voided and someone else took it up and they got another survey and so on. So, and it wasn't unusual for maybe even 100 years to pass between the filing of the warrant and perhaps accepting the survey, but not getting a patent until way down the line, because the people had to have the accumulated quit rent money, they had to have the purchase price money, and they had to go to the county courthouse and file this deed. So sometimes it took a long time to happen, and they could live on the land anyway because there was no time limit as to when they had to do all of these different steps, except for this 6-month time limit right here. If you don't get results in the search techniques that we try different spellings of the name. Remember, spelling was not standardized. Some of the ancestors didn't speak English. Some of them couldn't read and write, or maybe they wrote in another language. So and they might not spell things the way we think they should. So try different spellings, or try the browsing that we talked about. Browse by county. Go methodically year by year if you do not know the year. And then within the year, most of the applications are arranged in rough alphabetical order by first letter of the surname in each yearly group. So in order to do that, we would not use the search boxes. We would go to the Browse the Collection tab over here, scroll and choose the county and then a warrant year list will pop up for that county. You might also have to think again where the warrant would have been located. Nicholas started out in 1751 in Lancaster County, but in 1752, that same location became Berks County. So there could be lots of little quirks that you need to work out. These processes are quite complicated, actually. Okay, to find that same warrant on family search, and probably the only reason I would do this would be if I got a really bad copy on Ancestry. I might have a better shot at a nicer copy because it's maybe a different filming on family search. But to do that, again, you need to sign in, go to the search tab at the top of the home page, click on catalog, click on author, and this time we would go to the Pennsylvania Bureau of Land Records. That's where the warrants are located. So we would hit search for that. When we find that, we see that there are a number of records here, which are kind of interesting to look at, and we will be using some of these others later on today, but we would be looking for original warrants. So we would click on that. And as we know, these are arranged by county. So I had to scroll to the second page of returns in order to find Lancaster. And we know Nicholas's last name begins with D. And there are 2 film strips that have D's on them. So we'll have to remember, if we don't find him in the first one, he may be on the second one. And the C's are before the D's on this particular film strip. You have to pay attention to what you're doing, or it can take you forever to find these things. But anyway, I would click on the camera icon for that film strip. And I see that I have 1,333 thumbnails here to look at of images. But I know Nicholas is going to be towards the end, and it actually wasn't too terribly difficult to find him. And I get another version of that same record that we found on Ancestry. I think this one might be a little more clear, I'm not sure. But anyway, you can download these from the toolbar, which is over here, and print them. I like to download them, save them as a JPEG, and then use my photo editing software to improve the image if it's not very easy to read. So that's a little tip. And then I save that record no matter where I get it on my computer so that I have it in case it disappears, because the agreements between Ancestry or Family Search or MyHeritage or whatever may change over time, and that record may disappear. And if you haven't saved it to your computer, you may not be able to access it again for free. And if you don't know the county or year that your ancestor might have applied for land and received a warrant, this is a good way to look for them. You would have a major task if you had to go through all the counties, but if you have at least a general idea of where they were, this is very helpful. We can find these on 2 different places. On Family Search, you would sign in, search from the beginning, but this time we would search books because we're looking for indexes published by the Pennsylvania Archives. And those books are in the 3rd series, and they're on 3 of the volumes, volume 24, 25, and 26. So for Nicholas, we will look in Lancaster in volume 24, but if your ancestor that you were looking for would be in another county, you need to look for the index for the 3rd series and figure out whether you're in 25 or 26, or look at the table of contents for each one, which isn't very hard. But anyway, we'd search that and we get the correct volume. Just click on the image. And then you will need to go down to view all 801 pages or however many are in there. They may require that you sign in again. I encounter that occasionally, but then you can see all the images, all the pages in the book. And when we go to the table of contents on page 8, we see that Lancaster County is on page 347 to 546. So doing a little math here, I know that the D's are going to be a little ways into this. So I fiddled around a little bit, but I found Nicholas on page, I think it's actually 395, but here we are with him, his 50 acres, November 7th, 1751. So if you don't know what year, or if your person had a warrant, this is a good place to go through all of the D's or whatever letter that your ancestor's surname began with. They are arranged by first letter of the surname and then roughly pretty much in chronological order after that. So it's not terribly daunting and it's not strictly alphabetical. So don't forget to look very thoroughly at the instructions on these. Another place to look for the very same thing is ancestry.com. And I actually think that this might be easier to find because they divide the database into little chunks. So it's a lot easier to find what you're looking for. Here we would go to the card catalog for ancestry and go to card catalog and put in Pennsylvania published archives. And that's probably all you need to put in. And then you will get a drop-down box, which will have series 1, 2, 3, whatever. And then it would click on series 3. Then you would scroll down through the volumes until you find the Lancaster entry in volume 24. And click on that. And we actually get the very same image that we would get at the beginning of the last set that we looked in on family search. But this one breaks it down. You only get the Lancaster County records. So that's a little bit easier. And I believe the images are nicer here too. We get Nicholas also had a warrant in 1749. And then here's the one we're looking for right here. So that's a good way to look for a person if you don't know if your ancestor had a land warrant. This is a good place to look. Also, I discovered when I was playing around with this that they have other land records that are not in the third series in volume 24, 25, and 26. There are some that are very early land records that are in volume 1 and 2 and 3. They're old rights, lots of different things, but I found in volume 1 minutes of ye Welch purchasers, and I had Welch purchasers. I had Morris Llewellyn, who was my 8 times great grandfather. He, by deeds granted 19 and 20th January 1681, purchased of the proprietary 500 acres of land, of which he sold 100 acres to David Lewis. He sold some land to David Lewis, but no deed was made. So this is very interesting. I probably would not find this anywhere else. And he said the remaining 400 was sold in Marion, which he holds in Marion, excuse me, with 30 more purchased of Rees Retrac, which is up here. So anyway, Morris and his son owned land in Bryn Mawr, and they're actually, the land in their first home is still on the Bryn Mawr campus or very close to it near Philadelphia. So really cool stuff in there if you dig around. There are indexes to the warrants, and they show you all of the information that you need to know. So this is your gravy train right here. You want the index to the warrants, surveys, and patents. They're grouped by county where the warrant was filed, grouped by first letter of the warrantee's surname, and then are in rough chronological order. These documents contain the name of the person who made the warrant and received the patent. They list the book and page where the land surveys are recorded, and they list the volume and page where the patent is recorded. They also list the number of acres of land and may give other details about the tract. So this is an excellent, this is what you need to find all the rest of the records for your person. And to find those in the Pennsylvania archives, here we go. To conduct your own land records research, begin with these indexes. So you would go to, there's a link in your handout, which is the Pennsylvania Archives Land Records homepage. Scroll down the page until you find this, and then we're looking for someone after 1733, but you follow the prompts for the person that you are looking for. And you may have some difficulties if you're going way back in time because these counties changed hands and changed locations, you know, and broke up. So you just have to be patient and work really hard and find them. But if it was after 1733, the warrant registers, images of all pages are right here. So we click on that. And we get images of each page for each county. And I can't see it here, but if you would scroll down the left side of the page, there is a list of the various counties. So we would scroll down to Lancaster, click on Lancaster or whatever county you're looking for. And then we look for the first letter of the surname. And we had to scroll down past again where we can see here, but we're looking for Nicholas Dick. So we're looking under D. And I just go page by page until I find the person. And I found Nicholas on page 51. And I see that Nicholas had a warrant for 196, number warrant 196 for Nicholas Dick. He had a survey quantity of 50 acres, Topeka Township, 7th November, 1751. This was returned on the 25th of July, 1796. The actual acreage was surveyed at 63 acres, 13 perches. And the person who received the patent was John Jacob Anspaugh. That patent is recorded in book P29, page 297. And the survey is recorded in book C59, surveys 3, 4, and 5. So this is the gold mine right here. This is, in fact, if you know enough, you don't have to look for all those other records, but I'm showing you everything that I can find because I like to have everything in a reasonably exhaustive search. So we can find out all the things that we want to look for from this warrant register. We can find the same thing on family search, but again, this is much more tedious. I would look for this if I have a very bad copy on the archives. Otherwise, I would probably not bother. Sign in, search the catalog for the author, Pennsylvania Bureau of Land Records. All this is in your handout. Then we would find the Pennsylvania Bureau of Land Records again. A while ago, we looked at original warrants. Now we're looking at the warrant register. And we have to scroll down until we find the film strip that contains Lancaster. Again, when you're doing this, make sure you pay attention that this is way far into the film strip. It's the last set of records in this entire film strip. So if it's a lot of records, don't go through those beginning ones for nothing. Go to the end. We click on that and we find there are only 520 thumbnails. So that's not so bad, but we know it's going to be close to the end. I look very hard, find the book that I need for Lancaster, and there he is again on page 51. There are tools up on the toolbar that you can adjust this image, or you could try downloading it and editing it, but this one is not as good as the one at the archives. So this is a good reminder that they may be different images on, or different filmings on different websites. So if you need to look for a better image, use all your options. Now we go to the land survey. The warrant authorized the survey of the land. It provides a legal description of the property location, and these are drawn using meets and bounds rather than the township system that is used for federal land records. It may include notes on rivers, roads, landowners, land divisions, transfers, lots of different neighboring landowners, etc. These were returned to the Surveyor General to determine if the land was truly vacant and unclaimed. If the land was unclaimed, a return of warrant was issued. And the original surveys were sent to Harrisburg after being moved during the Revolutionary War. So they kept these things safe. The original surveys are probably in the archives, but I don't know that for 100%. They were copied after 1833 into ledgers. And so that's the images that we see from the archives. To find a survey in the archives, again, we go back to the home page of the Archives land records, look for the 5 basic documents, just scroll down the page, excuse me, until you get to the survey, images of all surveys, and it's not too far down the page. Then you would look for, we noticed on that warrant register, it's volume C59. So here's regular letters, then we get letters with numbers, and we go to volume C, scroll down until you find C59, click on that. And then we were looking for the surveys on page 3, 4, and 5. So we see that those are right here. The C59.3 is the drawing of the survey and accompanying notes. And then this is kind of the home or the title page for that on the reverse side. So we would click. We're just going to look at one of the three. This actually gives us the information about all three of those surveys. Nicholas had all of this land, and then it was divided to Jacob Anspaugh and Martin Brown. So this explains it. By virtue of a warrant granted to Nicholas Deck, and they say Deck this time, D-E-C-K, dated the 7th of November, 1751, the above described tract hath been surveyed for his use, and by the request of Martin Brown and Jacob Anspaugh, resurveyed the 17th of July, 1793, the same tract according to old marked trees, and divided into the same into two parts, to wit, number 1 for Martin Brown, combining 46 acres and 32 perches, and the allowance of 6%. They always had an allowance of 6% for roads and highways. And part number 2 for Jacob Anspaugh, containing 63 acres and 13 perches, together containing 109 acres. And it says it's situate in Topeka Township in the county of Berks. So we see now that the county has changed, but it is the same exact location. On these surveys, you sometimes see where the survey is next to the person. This one's C59, books, page 647, and so on. We see the names of the neighboring landowners, and each of the compass direction and the perches are noted on each side to define the land. And you can see this survey on county township maps in the Pennsylvania archives. In some cases, they are not all there, but many of them are. So we would go to the archives homepage again for land records, scroll way down to the bottom of that page, and you'll find tract maps, and look for warranty township images, scanned images of all warranty townships. And this part's tricky because now when they place these place the parcels in the township maps, it's where they are today, not where they were when the warrant and survey were filed. So I didn't know where Topeka Township turned up in Berks County. I thought it was the same township, but I wasn't sure. But I decided to try that one first. So what I did is I had to go to Berks County. These are the range of alphabetical names of counties. So Allegheny to Fayette, Berks is in there. So I clicked on that. And then in Berks County, I scrolled down to find Topeka Township just to see if he was there before I went to more trouble. And sure enough, I get this return. This is a very large file and you can scroll in on it. It's a PDF. It's very easy to see and very clear, but I just showed you what you get. In this area, there is a description of the property giving you all the details about the warrant, the survey, the patent, and all this, who it belonged to, the name of the tract, and so on. We see that John Jacob Anspaugh got 84B or 85B, I believe it is. And he called his parcel Fertile Plain. So that's kind of interesting. That's another thing we can look for in a minute. And if we zoom in on that, we actually see that Nicholas owned 65 and 84. And here are those two. This is an original warrant. And here's who the patents went to again. The Martin and Anspaugh. And then a relative of Nicholas, Frederick Dick, owned this parcel, and there was a John Dick way over farther to the west. And it's really fun to look for the same property on later maps. And so if you look on the Pennsylvania archives, that very same place that we found the connected draft maps, there are also what's called Militia Whiteside maps. Those are from 1816 to 1821 for all Pennsylvania counties, and it shows who some of the landowners were at that time period. And also at the Library of Congress, I found 1854, 1860, and 1862 maps for this area. These maps are also a good place to look for schools, churches, business, cemeteries, etc., that might be associated with your ancestor. They often also show roads and railroads, so that's another interesting point. Here I found Anspaugh and Brown in 1862. Here's where Martin Brown's land is, and Anspaugh is right next to him. We even see where their houses were. The little squares by them are the houses. I covered them with red dots, but it's really interesting. You can find a lot of interesting things on these maps that are fun to look at and give you good information. And we also noticed that now they're in Marion Township. Topeka Township has been divided, and they're in Marion Township in this particular case. Then after the survey was done, it was returned to the Secretary of the Land Office. And I think in that document, it said that the person paid for the land and that it was free of other encumbrances, so that it was available. And we don't find those anywhere. They're not online. And then we get the patent. The patent is the first purchaser's original deed to land purchased from the Penn or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The patent index is online at the archives, and the patents themselves, the actual deeds, are on Family Search. So we'll look at those now. To find the patent index, again, this is not something you really need, but it's a part of a reasonably exhaustive search. Again, we go to the home page of the land records at the Pennsylvania Archives, scroll down to patent indexes, and these are arranged in groups by chronological order. So there's a bunch of them that are the A and AA patents, then there are the P's and the H's. We would go to the one where the patent was granted, if you remember, to John Jacob Anspaugh in 1796. So we're not looking at 51 anymore. Now we're looking at 1786. So we're clicking on that set. This is the P series, and we can find the scanned images of the patent indexes found here. So you just have to look for that link to find the images of each one of these sets of records. Again, we're looking at the dates to figure out where John Jacob Anspaugh fits in right here. So we click on volume 2. His name begins with A. I just went through those pages until I found him on page 5. And he's way down at the bottom of the page here in book P29, page 297. John Jacob Anspaugh, 63 acres from Nicholas Deck. He named his plantation Fertile Plain. We saw that. And it came from 1751. And they say Berks County, but originally it was Lancaster, but now it's Berks. These same things can be found on Family Search. Again, it's a little bit trickier. You go to the catalog, look for patent books, and then you find the correct year and look for the image. Just so you know, we saw that Nicholas's tract was named Fertile Plain. There's also an index for the tracts at the archives. So if you don't find something by any other means, you might be able to find it by the tract name index. You scroll down that home page of the archives again and go down to the, these are different indexes down here. Tract name index, it's towards the bottom of the page. Go to images of all pages. You always look for the image link. And we see that it's the patent tract name. They are arranged by date first, date range, and then the tract name index is arranged alphabetically by the name of the tract of land rather than the owner. So we're looking for 1796. In this case, it's volume 3, patent book P20 through 35. That's a double check. We know he's on 29. And we scroll down the names beginning with F. And oh my, look, there are a whole bunch of fertile plains, popular name. But we found John Jacob down here with his, and it just tells you what book the patent for that particular tract of land is located in, P29 297. Again, just another thing to find. Now, the final step is getting a patent. The final step to legal ownership required payment of the purchase price and all the accumulated quit rents and legal fees. So if 45 years passed between the filing of the survey and the granting of the patent, they might have to pay the quit rent, that half penny sterling for every year for every acre in order to get the patent. So it might require quite a bit of money. Also required a trip to the county seat or courthouse, which might have been far, far away over the mountain and under the cave and in the hills. But anyway, it wasn't easy at some of these time periods. It had no time limit between the warrant, survey, and issue of the original patent. And it might have changed hands several times without surviving paperwork. The copy of these are pretty easy to find. They're on Family Search. And to find them, we would search the catalog for patent books, 1676, or if you just put patent books in, you're going to find it if you hit search. You can also search under the author for the Pennsylvania Bureau of Land Records again and find patent books. There are different ways to find the patent books. When you find them, they are arranged by series, the A, the double A, etc. So we find the P series and go down to the book that contains P29, page 297. We see here, it should be in this film strip. So we click on our little image. By the way, if this image should happen to come up with a key above it, it's still accessible, but you will have to go to an affiliate library for family search or family history. My local public library, our genealogical library, and the LDS church in our town all are affiliate libraries. You can go to one of those locations and log on and get the record, but you may not be able to access it from home. So here we have one of 725. I know that it's pretty far back because volume 29 was a ways. I find volume 29 begins on 173, and you can just look at the film strip thumbnails to see where that patent book pops up. It's pretty easy to see without scrolling through all of them. And then I did some mental math. This is on page 173. There are 2 pages on each film strip, usually on 2 pages on each view here, and we're looking for 297. So when I got finished figuring, it was on image 325. Here's his patent on page 297 of volume 29, P29. And it's not a terrible copy, but it's not great. So again, I download these, clean them up a little bit to get them the best that I can. And then I do a split screen and transcribe. So here's what it says. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to all whom these presents shall come, greeting. Know ye that in consideration of the monies paid by Nicholas Deck unto the late proprietaries of the warrant hereinafter mentioned, and of the sum of 30 pounds, 8 shillings and 6 pence in lawful money now paid by John Jacob Anspaugh to the Recorder General's office of this Commonwealth, there is granted by the said Commonwealth and to the said John Jacob Anspaugh a certain tract of land called Fertile Plain, situate in Topeka Township, etc. It goes through all of the boundaries and meets and bounds, and it says that it was in pursuant of a warrant dated 7th November. So we know this is the exact same property. Everything matches up. And it was given to the secretary 3rd day of September, 1796. Another thought on this is that you often can find other land and land records in these. Sometimes it'll say several different people's names is what I'm trying to say in this section down here. This case, it doesn't mention anyone except Nicholas, but we know he passed it on. You can also check, oh, I know what I was going to say too. Those, if they're really difficult to read, you can look at other nearby documents. They all follow a really scripted pattern. So if you can't read one word in your document or a line or something, sometimes you can go to a joining patent, look at that and figure out what it says. Another thing is if you're trying to transcribe all of these perches and degrees and everything, sometimes you can't make that out very easy. You can check that by using that connected draft land description, because it gives you all of the boundaries and it tells you who the neighbors were. So if you can't read it in the patent, this is a good way to find it and check it. So you can, he's beginning at a stone by the land of Henry Labo, and it's south 89 degrees, east 96 perches to a stone. So I can check that right here. And if I blow this up, I can also check it on my survey to see if I have all of the information correct. And maybe that's not important, but I'm just kind of picky and I like to do the best job I can if I'm going to the trouble to do it. After the land was patented, then any other transfers of the land will be found in the county seat where the transfer was done. So the copy is filed in the county seat after the patent was granted. The purchaser would get the original copy, but they copied this into the books at the Recorder of Deeds office. These were private citizens now, not between the Commonwealth or the Penns. And you need to check the county boundaries for the date the deed was recorded. You can usually find them at the Recorder of Deeds. Some are online at Family Search. Some are at the Recorder's office only. Some you can get online, some you have to write or visit the Recorder's office to get a copy of. So let's look at a couple of ideas. If the county recorder has a website, sometimes they have a search function. So we'll look at that. I would Google the county recorder for the county you're interested in. So I did that for Berks and found the web page. When I got here, I looked for search the records online, clicked on that. Click again, just follow the prompts. You may have to look around. You may have to look at how do I or frequently asked questions, different places to find what you need. But most of these use this service. You log in as a guest. Don't do this because that's for people that are officials, I believe. A guest can look at anything. It's real simple. You just put guest, and you're done. Then again, you have to follow the prompts, search the public records. On these, sometimes current records and archived records are in different databases, so make sure you look at that carefully if you can't find what you're looking for. And then you put in your person's name, last name, first name, or just the surname if you prefer. Put in a date range and search. And I got several returns for Jacob Anspaugh. So we don't know exactly what happened to Jacob's land or what happened to Nicholas's land, but this is a good place. And I don't know which one of these talks about that specific parcel. I'm just giving you an example. But we see here in book 42, page 312, we have a deed between Jacob and Adam, which is probably his son or some other relative. But anyway, we can click on that. And we can save it in or open it in a new window. We can navigate up here, do some different things. If we decide we want this deed, we can click on save image or email image, which will generate a screen which asks for your credit card information. And generally, depending on the size of the file, 2 or 3 pages or whatever it is, it's $1 to $2.50, depending on what each of the counties asks. So you can get a copy of these, and I have done that, and they're very nice copies. Or at Family Search, you might be lucky to find a free copy. So make note of the volume and the page. Go to Family Search, log in, click on search the catalog, but this time you will search by place. So you would put in, I just put in Pennsylvania and then click, it'll give you the United States automatically. Type in Berks, click on search, and you would look for land records, land and property. Scroll down until you find the County Recorder of Deeds site. Not every county will have these, but many of them do. They are quite complete in many cases, up to fairly modern dates. Sometimes they don't go real recently. A lot of times there is an index, but they might not show the actual deed itself, but you know it's there then and could get it from the Recorder of Deeds. But anyway, we click on this, make sure it's the Recorder of Deeds site. And I think we looked at that last one. It was book 42, page something. So we could click on that and we could, page 312. We can find it again on image 548 of that film strip and save it and fix it up. And it looks pretty good. That's the way we would do that. And that pretty much concludes all of the how to find stuff. And I know that was an overwhelming, huge amount of stuff, but every little step is on your handout. So you will be able to do that on your own, I'm quite sure. Just for fun, one of my cousins in Wyoming took our fourth great grandfather's survey and superimposed it where it is now today on Google Earth. And it's just amazing that even today, the contours of this survey follow the lines of some of the fields in this particular survey. So funny. But anyway, it was pretty easy to find this because we knew the Chillisquaque Cemetery was close by, so it was pretty easy to find that. And I went to the area in 2018, but if you can't go there, there are ways you can see the land online. You can find that same place on a road map today. Here's our cemetery and Highway 254, and the land is right up in here. You can go down and click on the layer that shows the terrain. So if you do that, and then take your little fellow down here and drag him to the road that you would like to go down. And I will tell you that not every road is marked so that you can drive down it, but most of the fairly decent sized highways are marked. So you can put your little man on here and click, and voila, you're on Highway 254. And this is Williams land on either side of this highway. And you can click on the highway and drive down the road and see where the land is today and what it looks like now. I also clicked in the same place down by the cemetery and saw the cemetery wall and the gazebo and all of the tombstones. So you can see the cemetery today. And I actually went there in person. So here I am with William McWilliams' tombstone in Chillisquaque Cemetery. He was a Revolutionary War patriot, not because he fought, but because he paid taxes. And that's the end. Okay. Ta-da!
That was wonderful, Cindy. I'm going to let you catch your breath for a second
That's
here.
good.
We do have
It's all good.
We have a couple questions.
Oh dear.
I just want to thank everybody for attending today. And I know Cindy took a lot of time and effort to put together this presentation, and her handout is amazing. If you follow it step by step, you really have it's a great roadmap. And she will help you navigate through all those collections to find what you're looking for, hopefully. And you're getting lots of comments here on good job, thanks.
Oh, thanks.
But if we go back early in your presentation, Mary Hoyer asked a couple questions here, and you might have answered them, but I'll throw them at you and you can kind of rephrase them again. What happened when someone settled land before it was an official with the government? Where would you find these records and what would be next? So I think they're talking about really early settlers.
Right. Well, those were called squatters. I would still look for the person. They usually stayed where they were and they just ignored whatever anybody told them, unless the Indians came in and drove them away. The Native Americans were not very happy when the agreements were violated. And that's what happened a lot of times. The people would settle west of where the boundary line was that the Penns or the government had purchased land. But I have found many records where it says on the application, he asks to have surveyed or to be granted land which he has been where he has settled for 8 years or 10 years or whatever. So they probably either vacated the land, which there's no record, or they would receive the application and the warrant at a later date.
Good job. And her second question, I think you just answered too. She said, how did the change go from British to French to the US government and then the Indian Wars? How did that affect the earliest settlers and where were the records kept and eventually transferred? And
that's a good question.
It is a good question, isn't it?
Yeah, I do know that I read some of the other governments like Switzerland and France. Some of the records are in other countries. So that's where some of them would have been. I don't know anything much about the records unless they were lands granted by Penn or owned by Penn or purchased by Penn and the colonial government. I don't know what happened to those other people.
And then I think you also covered the fact that, county property stayed the same, but county names could change. So we started with Lancaster and then went to Berks, and then the townships changed. So I think you have to do a little bit of your county research too.
And some of Pennsylvania was even in Delaware, I think. Today's Delaware. Yeah.
And then Katie asked a question about, and she was a little confused at one point. The purchase was for 50 acres to start with, but at the end, the survey was for 106.
That would be because he may have asked for more land. Actually, that 50 acres was, when surveyed, was 63 acres and so many purchased. The people just estimated how many acres were there, and usually it's in round numbers, 50, 100, 200, 250, whatever. Then they would go in with their chains that would measure the purchase, and I think there are 320 purchase in a mile, and they used their compass and their chains and would measure the land and find out how much was there.
Very good. And you're just getting many kudos here. Terrific. Great step-by-step directions.
Oh, good.
And I want you to know we had people from, I think, 10 different states across the United States today. And Tom Mercer wants to tell you that after your voice has been worn down here, a little bit of American Honey by Wild Turkey Bourbon will take care of your throat later on.
Oh, that's different.
Good advice from Kentuckians, let me tell you, when you do a presentation.
That's great. Well, I do know this is very, very complicated stuff if you go in and try to do this without any help, because I started out just fumbling around in there, and the website changes sometimes too on the archives. But I went in there looking around and I would find something and be so happy. And then I try to find it again. I would make major mistakes on how I saved the source of the information. So I've learned a lot. You always download that PDF and keep the name so you can find it again and those sort of things. But anyway, if you follow those instructions and adapt them to your situation, you should have good results. I hope. Oh,
I can vouch for that. She actually did take my Nicholas deck. And when she got done presenting this to our German SIG group, I actually took her step-by-step, your handout to follow. And as long as you follow it step by step, I was able to access all those records. I was impressed. So Cindy, you did a great job navigating us through a very complicated process here today. So, and thank you for jumping in at the last minute with this presentation. It was excellent. I'm hoping everybody enjoyed it who joined us today. Just want to remind you, go to our website. Please look at our fall seminar on October 16th. And we have some couple good workshops and programs coming up here before the end of the year. And then we'll be throwing together a whole new set of workshop and programs for the 2022 season. Right now, we are just doing Zoom. Hopefully, if COVID dies down, the first of the year, we can make some decisions on going hybrid. So hang in there, everybody. Stay healthy. Thank you again, Cindy, for a great presentation. And I hope everybody has a good afternoon. And may you continue, take the handout, and you'll be searching all afternoon and evening, people, let me tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.